I want all the brothers to pay the utmost attention. The different pseudo-esoteric and pseudo-occult schools emphatically affirm that the human being possesses 7 bodies. The first is called the physical body. It is the famous Sthula Sarira of the Oriental Theosophists. The second in the East is called Linga Sarira, or vital body, and it is the basis of organic life, the tetradimensional part of the physical body. The third body is Kamas, the principle of desire, the famous astral body cited by the medieval alchemists. The fourth body is called mental by the Hindustani and inferior manas in Sanskrit. The fifth vehicle is the causal body, or arupic, as it is called by the Theosophists. The sixth body is the buddhic, or intuitional body, the superlative consciousness of the being. The seventh is called Atman by the Hindustani, the ineffable, the intimate. Certainly, ancient wisdom says, before the false aurora, it is necessary to adore and worship the intimate. I have presented a scheme, the Theosophical scheme, the scheme of Oriental wisdom. However, all of this must be analyzed if we truly wish to attain complete knowledge of ourselves. The crude reality of the facts is that with developed clairvoyance, one can know much more. The Theosophists, yogis, pseudo-Rosicrucians, and schools of a similar nature firmly believe in the Theosophical Septenary and would never accept the concrete fact that they do not yet possess these bodies. Therefore, all of this deserves to be carefully analyzed. The 7 bodies are also mentioned in the school of Max Heindel. The physical is simply called the physical body. The basis of organic life is called the vital body. The principle of desire, the astral body. The concrete mind, the mental body. The fifth, the causal body. The sixth, the body of consciousness. And the seventh is called the virginal spark. Any school of this Kali Yuga era believes in the Theosophical Septenary, but I repeat, clairvoyance goes further. I will tell you the result of my investigations. I will not take into account the affirmations of Theosophists and pseudo-Rosicrucians. You know very well that there are many schools, and each one has the right to sustain its thesis. I will separate myself from those schools in order to explain to you the results of my investigations. Certainly, I have seen for myself that disembodied beings who possess an astral body also possess a defined personality, an astral personality, which remains after death. However, I have also realized that not all human beings possess this vehicle. In the astral world, the astral body appears as a real vehicle of flesh and bones. It is a defined vehicle, with its organs, physiology, pathology, and ultrabiology, etc. However, in the astral world, one clearly recognizes those who do not possess it, because they appear as mere phantoms, walking asleep in the 5th dimension, that is, in the astral. Of course, what I'm stating cannot be verified by the senses of external perception. I am referring to something that does not correspond to the world of the 5 senses, and that can only be verified in the astral world through different faculties. What continues after death? Obviously, the disembodied who possess such a body will continue to have that body. But I repeat, at the risk of sounding repetitive, not everyone possesses this vehicle. In the majority of people, what continues after death is the ego. It is necessary to make a clear distinction between the ego and the superior existential bodies of the being, between the ego and the astral body. I believe that even though I am explaining this, it may still not be fully understood. Therefore, we need to clarify it through a lived experience. I knew an extraordinary case, a man who directed a Gnostic Lumisio. That man performed rituals and appeared to be very devout. In truth, he loved Gnosis. Once he disembodied, I wanted to investigate him in the fifth coordinate, that is, in the fifth vertical, using supranormal faculties. There are systems that allow one to leave the body at will. These can also be achieved through hypnology. If someone is induced into a hypnotic state and enters a trance, it is possible to extract the consciousness from the physical body. The hypnotized person will then be able to see, hear, and touch realities that do not belong to the three-dimensional world of Euclid. Frankly speaking, I do not use that system because I consider it incipient and residual. We go further. We can accomplish this through catalepsy or through specific scientific techniques in order to explore life in the superior worlds. Do not be surprised when I tell you that I can do this. I am the founder and president of the Universal Gnostic Christian Movement, and I have taught this science to many people, something I will continue to do. I left the physical body in order to investigate my friend, the director of the Gnostic group, the esoteric priest of Alumisul. With pain, I must tell you that I found him in a sleepwalking state. That man looked like a sleepwalker, although I think it is exaggerated to use the word man. It would be more exact to say phantom. He was walking through the streets of a great city. Which city? The one where he had lived before dying. His condition was not beautiful. He displayed the state of decomposition of a cadaver. I touched him, and he was cold. Certainly that man, I repeat, I am using the word man in a conventional manner, had never worked with the sacred fire. This is serious. He had had a wife priestess, and thus made people believe that he was working in the forge of the Cyclops, yet in truth he was a fornicator like anyone else. I said to him, "You are disembodied. Your physical body is dead. It lies in the sepulchre. Become conscious of this reality." He answered, "No, I am not dead. I am alive." I said, "Your physical body is already dead." "That is impossible. I feel the same." "Well, let us make an experiment. Look at yourself in a mirror." We entered a place where there was a mirror, me in my astral body and he as a mere phantom. "Observe your face." He looked at himself in the mirror, an astral mirror, of course. He appeared as a specter reflected in it. We left that place, and I said to him, "Do you still not believe that you are dead, even after seeing yourself in the mirror?" "That is impossible. I do not believe that I am dead." "Well, then, let us do something else. Jump and try to float in the surrounding atmosphere. You will realize that you can float, and this will convince you of your death. In the physical world, there exists the law of gravity. One jumps and falls. In the astral world, however, the law of levitation exists, and bodies can float." He said, "Very well, I will do it to see if it is true that I am dead, although I do not believe it." "Well then, jump." The man jumped, trying to float in the surrounding atmosphere, a floating phantom. However, suddenly there arose in his torpid mind the idea that he might fall head first. That thought became a reality, it became a fact, and he fell, striking his head against the floor, forming the sign of the inverted pentagram. I said to him, "You have forged in your mind the idea that you could fall." Everything was useless. From within that phantom emerged different animal-like forms. One appeared as a furious bull. I said to myself, "That is the demon of anger." Another as a furious dog, lewdness. Another as an angry trotting horse, lust, and so on. Different inhuman beasts emerged from that phantom. I had to leave that poor phantom, for it was time to return to my physical body. He was a phantom and nothing more. He who possesses an astral body is different. It is necessary to make a clear distinction between one who possesses an astral body and one who does not. We can already see that not everyone possesses the Theosophical Septenary, and it is absurd to believe that everyone is a Septenary. There is exaggeration and a lack of analysis in pseudo-esoteric and pseudo-occult affirmations. We must be more profound, more analytical. Let us now continue with the mental body, which is one of the dogmas of Handel, Steiner, Blavatsky, and others. Inferior manas, concrete mind. What is that? When have humanoids possessed a true mental body? I do not deny that the masters of the fraternity of the inner light possess an individual mental body. To deny this would be absurd. However, I do not affirm that all humanoids who live on the face of the earth already possess a mental body. Let us not exaggerate. The schools with Caucasian personalities of these times not only ignore, which is serious, but also ignore that they are ignorant. They not only do not know, but they do not even know that they do not know. That is painful. An individual mind, that is a luxury that very few can attain, that very few can possess. If we reflect profoundly, we will realize that our mind resembles a weather vane, moving according to the wave. Today one thought, the next moment another. Suddenly we affirm something, and then we deny it. We are full of terrible contradictions. If we truly possessed an individual mind, it would be impossible to be so paradoxical, to contradict ourselves as we do from moment to moment. We know we contradict ourselves excessively, yet we deceive ourselves so as not to see ourselves as madmen. We always find justifications, evasions for our beloved contradictions. Yes, but I had not reflected on that idea. That is why I thought that way. Today I changed my mind. I analyzed the situation more carefully and will not proceed with the business I had in mind. We always juggle with understanding to deceive ourselves. We do not like to think that we are insane. The truth is that an individual mind is something very difficult to find. It must be fabricated. People have not done so. We have minds, and that is something different. Within our human being, if it can be called human, live many psychological persons. Let us observe the contradictions. At one moment we say, "Let us go eat," and suddenly another idea appears, coming from the eye of movement, and one says, "No, I will not eat yet. I will go to the mall." That idea may be sabotaged by the eye of the intellect. Why should I go there? Better to sit down and read the newspaper. Observe how these three persons are in conflict, the one of the stomach that wants to eat, the one of movement that does not want to eat yet, and a third that comes from the intellect. This means that within our psychology there exist many persons. However, they are not mere unsubstantial entities. They are real psychological people who exist within psychological space. If we accept the existence of three-dimensional space, we must also accept the existence of psychological space. This is unquestionable. It is said that Jesus, the great Kabir, cast 7 demons out of the body of Mary Magdalene. These are the 7 capital sins: anger, greed, lust, envy, pride, laziness, and gluttony. If we multiply those 7 sins by 7 and so on, we can realize that within ourselves there exists a legion. In the Gospel, the possessed man exclaimed, "My name is Legion." The name of each one of us is Legion. This is what the Gospel says, and I repeat it because it is true. Legion, but what legion? A legion of demons. This is obvious, for we are not saints. Who could deny that within ourselves exist the 7 capital sins? Already Virgil, the poet of Mantua, in the Aeneid, that extraordinary work of Latin classicism, said, "Even if we had 1,000 mouths to speak and palates of steel, we would not be able to enumerate all our psychological defects." We are not tame lambs, are we? Having each one of those demons that we carry within our own mind means that we have many minds. An individual mind, a mental body, as taught by Oriental Theosophy, or as explained by Max Heindel, is not possessed by present-day humanity. What are the foundations of my emphatic affirmations? I do not believe that you think I am making dogmatic assertions, for in many of you there is sincerity. Besides, I do not like dogmatism. It is 100% absurd. What are the bases of my affirmations? How can I refute the pseudo-esoteric diagram? In the name of truth, I must tell you that one must bear witness to what one knows. I am here to tell you the truth. While outside my physical body, I have profoundly investigated and studied the mind. One day, while with Mr. Leadbetter, who was one of the brightest theosophists of the past century and the beginning of this one, author of many works such as The Inner Life, The Chakras, etc., I had an extraordinary experience. Mr. Leadbetter said to me, "We are trying to help you in the inner worlds so that you may give the message to humanity in the physical world." "Yes, Mr. Leadbetter," I said. "And what would you say about your books?" "Ah, that is something that has no importance," he answered, smiling, making it clear that his books were merely incipient literary works, and that he had given only the first notions in order to awaken inquietude, but had not written profound esoteric works. Mr. Leadbetter, the author of The Chakras and many other theosophical works, is a respectable person. Obviously, in the superior worlds, he is not a nobody. Mr. Leadbetter gave me a specific help. At that moment, the inner profound being of Mr. Leadbetter separated my mental body from my astral body and transported me to Egypt, the land of the pharaohs. I entered a temple where I met some ancient initiates, my friends, venerable ancients from the time of Pharaoh Khephren. Later, I returned again to my astral body. However, the journey had been made with my mental body. I said to him, "This is marvelous, extraordinary." I thanked him and said goodbye. He departed walking through the streets of London, for he had been British. I saluted him from a distance. He is a conscious man, an awakened man, a true master. Then I said to myself, why do people believe that they possess a mental body? I have one, yes, because I crystallized it in ancient times. However, not everyone has been involved in these studies. So where did they get the idea that they possess an individual mental body? Why do pseudo-esoteric books exaggerate on this point? People have multiple eyes, and each eye has its own mind. That is to say, people have many minds, and not one, as they believe. Let us now examine the causal body. The causal body is the body of conscious will. In the world of conscious will, one finds the causes of one's own errors, the causes of one's own mistakes, the I causes. Each I has its own cause that originated it. In the causal world, one finds the law of the balance, the law of cosmic justice. One discovers that every cause has its effect, and that each effect in turn becomes a cause. One day, while in the natural causes world, in a magnificent temple, I said something with the intention of studying the chain of causes and effects. I refuted the speaker while he was explaining something to his disciples. He felt somewhat uncomfortable and made another affirmation, which transformed itself into another affirmation, and that into another and another. In this way, a series of causes and effects was set in motion, and thus I understood what the causal world truly is. In this region dwell the lords of karma. They live in the world of natural causes. However, not everyone possesses a causal body. In the world of natural causes, one discovers millions of creatures, we could say the psychic human essence of millions of people, for each person has his psychic human essence in the causal world. Those small souls, and forgive me this expression, for I am using it intentionally and with a definite purpose, have not yet unfolded. They do not possess the causal body. They have not attained the level of the causal man. If I were to say that those small souls are causal phantoms, I would be giving only a very pale and indeed very distant idea of what they are. They cannot truly be called phantoms. They are very real creatures, but they have not yet reached the level of the causal man.
When you are ready, send the next section, and I will continue in the same manner.
The causal man is one who possesses a causal body. He is someone who has crystallized it. The causal man lives in that region as a true man, not as a simple element. He possesses a defined personality, a causal personality. It is not my intention to appear vain before this select group of friends, but I must emphatically affirm that I am a causal man, and that I know my world. I have my center of gravity in the causal world, and from that region I project myself in order to speak and teach. From there, I project myself to the astral world in order to work, or to the world of the mind when necessary. Therefore, I am giving testimony without taking into consideration whether people believe it or not. In reality, the Theosophical Septenary does not apply to everyone. One has to fabricate those bodies, astral, mental, and causal. Only a real man can receive the psychic, spiritual, or ethical principles, the pneuma of the Gnostics, the spirit. He who has not fabricated those bodies is not a man. What I am affirming is very delicate. You are tolerating me because you are kind and sympathetic people. However, if I were to speak in a public square and say this truth to the masses, I would probably be stoned like Stephen, or lapidated like Raymond Lully, the great medieval alchemist in Moorish lands. I repeat, in order to be a man, the basic condition is the creation of the superior existential bodies of the being. You do not possess those bodies yet, but you have the germs for their creation. Those germs are deposited in the sexual glands, which are not closed capsules as many believe. They secrete and attract hormones. We could say that the sun is performing a gigantic experiment in the laboratory of nature. This experiment is the creation of solar men, a very difficult experiment. In the times of Abraham the prophet, many creations were achieved. During the first 8 centuries of Christianity, many were attained. In the Middle Ages, only a few. Today, many efforts are being made so that the sun may obtain a good harvest of solar men. It is not easy to become a solar man. It is necessary to have availability for manhood. Only in this way can the germs unfold. We do not affirm that in all cases those germs develop. Normally they are lost. However, if we cooperate with the sun, we can attain their development. In the sexual glands lies the germ of the astral body, of the mind, and of the causal body. However, in order for these germs to develop, fertile soil is necessary. Obviously, if the soil is fertile, the germs will germinate. If it is not, they will be lost. If we experiment with the glands, we damage the development of the germs. Glandular transplants, experiments with different hormones, experiments with thyroxine, etc., alter the human body and impede the germination of the seeds. This is truly serious. However, scientists believe in their science, in transplants, in hormonal experiments, in transplanting glands from apes, etc., and think this is great progress. At bottom, all of this is false. We know ants well. One feels admiration when contemplating an anthill. What a perfect organization! However, one also feels a certain pain when one knows that everything they do is automatic. As a matter of fact, in a remote past, during the primary and secondary epochs, ants were once a human race that established a social order through tremendously bloodthirsty dictatorships. They eliminated religious principles, believing these sabotaged the dictatorial order. At the beginning, the iron glove of a Stalin was necessary. I am making a comparison. I do not wish to project Stalin as a personality. Over time, their movements became automatic. As intelligence atrophied, all movements were inherited from parents to children.
They carried out glandular experiments of different kinds that altered human morphology. That race, passing through different involutive processes, became smaller and smaller, until today they are what we now see. Those who observe everything superficially, the empty and sterile minds, the wells of shallow water, may laugh at this unusual affirmation. However, truth is truth. The germs of man cannot unfold in infertile soil. It is necessary to maintain the organism in good condition so they may unfold harmoniously. The creation of these bodies is possible when one knows sexual alchemy. The ancient medieval alchemists spoke of salt, sulfur, and mercury. The Greeks spoke of the arche. The arche, or archeus, is formed by three universal substances: salt, sulfur, and mercury. These three elements exist everywhere. For example, if we decompose iron, we will find salt, sulfur, fire, and mercury because they are fundamental substances. The same is true of any other metal. Therefore, the arche, the archeus of the Greeks, possesses salt, sulfur, and mercury. Any unity, any world born from the universal womb, arises from salt, sulfur, and mercury, that is, from the archeus. If we take into consideration that as above, so below, and that the microcosm is the same as the macrocosm, then we must say that it is necessary to create another arche, our own arche, formed from salt, sulfur, and mercury, if we wish to create the superior existential bodies of the being. Do we want to possess the astral, mental, and causal bodies? Then let us fabricate the arche within ourselves. Does the universal intelligence wish to create a new solar system? It must fabricate the arche above, in interplanetary space, because as it is above, so it will be below.
Certainly, all of this demands a careful and didactic analysis, so it may be comprehended without confusion. Obviously, we must explain how to fabricate the arche, because from it we will obtain the existential superior bodies of the being, the bodies that will transform us into true men. All of these explanations would be useless if I did not teach you how to fabricate the arche. Salt, sulfur, and mercury are the foundations of the arche. What is salt? Jesus the great Kabir said, "If the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be seasoned?" He also said, "Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has degenerated, men cast it into the outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth." Each one of us is the salt of the earth. From a homeopathic and biological chemical point of view, we know that there are 12 salts within us. These 12 salts are related to the 12 zodiacal signs. The 12 salts are very useful in biochemistry. At bottom, the fundamental substance of our body is salt. Sulfur is the fire itself, the sacred fire. Mercury is the metallic soul of the sperm, of the exiohehari. It is the transmuted mercury. Mercury exists in everything. It is the raw material of the great work. For example, if we transmute the sexual libido, we obtain mercury. If, by means of transmutation, we transform the sperm into energy, that energy is mercury, the mercury of the wise. Undoubtedly, in alchemy, the preparation of mercury was carried out very carefully. The wise never explained how it was prepared. Today, however, we must have the boldness to do so. The attainment of the philosopher's stone becomes impossible if we do not know the science of sexual transmutation. The foundation of transmutation lies in the arcanum AZF, which is deposited among the treasures of the Aryavarta ashrama. Much has been said about the Aryavarta ashrama in the lands of Tibet. Obviously, within it lies the treasure, the secret of the arcanum AZF. I know how to teach this arcanum without scandalizing anyone. I will say that it basically consists of the connection of the lingam and yoni without the ejaculation of the ens seminis, wherein, as Philippus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim or Aurelius Paracelsus stated, resides the ens virtutus of the fire. The lingam, as the generative organ, is the Greek phallus. The yoni, the feminine organ, is always represented by the sacred coffin of the great mysteries, by the Holy Grail, by the silver cup of Benjamin, by the glass of Hermes Trismegistus, etc. In India, Shiva, the third logos, has beautiful attributes. We know well what the fundamental symbols of Shiva are: the black lingam penetrating the metallic yoni. The esoteric tantric Shaivites must know these mysteries. In any case, through the transmutation of the exiohehari, or sacred sperm, the metallic soul of the sperm arises, the mercury, which ascends through certain nervous channels to the brain. When that energy receives the fire, when it is nourished by sulfur, the arche is created. Therefore, mercury must be fecunded by sulfur, the Holy Spirit within ourselves. The operations of fire and mercury on salt are extraordinary. In this way, the exiohehari is formed. New combinations, new progressive dialectical operations cause the salt, already animated by sulfur and mercury, to take the extraordinary form of the astral body. Much later, on a higher octave, the salt, already fecunded by sulfur and mercury, transforms itself into the mental body, and later into the causal body. This is how the existential superior bodies of the being are obtained. But first, we must form the arche within ourselves using salt, sulfur, and mercury. From that arche arise the existential superior bodies of the being. Above us, the stars and the worlds that shine and palpitate in infinite space arise from the arche, because as it is above, so it is below. In the microcosm, the events of the macrocosm are repeated. Brothers, the time has come to comprehend all of this on all levels of the mind. Only by creating the astral, mental, and causal bodies do we become true men. When one creates these bodies, one receives the psychic and spiritual principles. It is necessary to make a clear distinction between a real man and the intellectual animal. If we place a real man face to face with an intellectual animal, we will see that they are physically alike. It may even happen that the intellectual animal appears more intellectually witty. They are very similar. The intellectual rogue may even eclipse the real man, the simple man. However, if one observes the behavior of the intellectual animal, one realizes they are different. The real man has a high sense of moral responsibility. The intellectual animal does not. The man does not commit fornication. He would never dare to spill the glass of Hermes Trismegistus, the three great god Ibis of Thoth. The intellectual animal reproduces like a beast, behaves like a beast, lives like a beast, even if he dresses elegantly. We must be profound in our analysis. Do not forget that I am mathematical in investigation and demanding in expression. We are speaking about something very serious, the creation of men. I affirm emphatically that the intellectual animal is not a man. These affirmations are unusual, but terribly real.
Tonight, I am not trying to force you to accept my thesis. You are free to accept or reject the teaching. I give you complete freedom to refute me. What I am doing is exposing it in a dialectical and didactic manner so that you may understand it. Obviously, the pseudo-esoteric and pseudo-occult schools are affirming something false. They say that everybody possesses the Theosophical Septenary. That is, they affirm that everybody is a man. This is not true. It is better to speak the truth than to lead people along the path of lies and fallacy. The truth is painful, yes, very painful, but it must be spoken. As the common proverb says, the truth does not sin, but it bothers. Are you sure that you are already men? What is the basis of that belief? What are the foundations of such an affirmation? The fact is that the humanoid is not completely human in the most transcendental sense of the word. If we examine the humanoid carefully, the first thing we find is the physical body, that is to say, the planetary foundation. That vehicle is a vital base which the Linga Sarira of the Hindustanis, that is, the thermoelectric magnetic vehicle, the superior section of the physical body, the foundation of the biochemical, physiological, and caloric processes. However, at the bottom, that vehicle is merely the superior section of the physical body itself. Beyond the planetary body and its vital base, the only thing we find are the psychic aggregates which, in their conjunct form, constitute the myself, the I, the ego. Inferential peace. Samael Aun Weor.